for being here. I'm going to be real embarrassed if my panel isn't the best one. So I'm going to try to do it as good as we can here.
I mean, that would be our fault.
That will be your fault. You know what, Neil? I'll say, Neil, you made my panel one of the worst ones. I'm very embarrassed.
Why do I always hear that?
You always do, even in Maui, everything, right? We were there together. Okay, so welcome to the marketing panel. I'm just going to say the general marketing panel. We have some amazing panelists that we're going to get some good information from. And I probably don't moderate like most of the moderators that you guys have seen so far. I moderate in a very, very casual manner. And I want to talk about only what you guys want to know. So this is going to be more of an entire Q&A session. We're going to answer any and all questions that you have. If you guys get shy, don't worry, I got you covered. But we're going to try to get all of your questions answered and start some great conversations that way. So, first of all, we're going to introduce the panel. Very impressive panel. I think we do a good job of covering a lot of the different areas of marketing that we need to. So we'll get started with Neil.
Hi, my name is Neil Janeja, and I'm an attorney at Gleam Law. It's a firm I founded over 10 years ago specific to cannabis, and we do quite a bit of work on trademarks. We have 4 offices on the West Coast, and as far as trademarks work, this is how to protect your brand in trade, how to protect your brand name, your slogan, even sometimes your packaging and what your stores look like on a state, federal, and international level.
And I'm Brandon Holmes. I'm the CEO of Dan Hemp Works based in Portland, Oregon. It's a CPG brand working to grow into the natural products, the mainstream natural products space. So before us, we have the challenge of hitting up Natural Products Expo East, Natural Products Expo West, and differentiating from a litany of companies in that space. My background, I've co-founded a content marketing agency 10 years ago that serviced adventure travel firms and outdoor brands, and then that spun a marketing-based software company that serviced destination marketing organizations. So we're a very marketing-focused consumer packaged good company in the early stage.
My name is Edwin Leskin. I'm a career marketing professional working in agencies, startups across industry. Can you guys hear me? Yeah? Right now I am the marketing director for a company called Sci-Fi Systems. We create scaled processing facilities for the CBD space. It's a B2B play and a little bit different than a lot of the distribution here, but my core background is in B2C, large-scale marketing rollouts, and so I'm excited to talk with this excellent panel.
Hi, I'm Lisa Litton, and can you hear me? I think this is working. I'm the founder of Moodbox, which is a small, curated gift box experience. It's not working. Okay. Hello? All right. So, founder of Moodbox. I really just launched, so I am the least professional marketing person up here. But what I am is a person who's in the midst of, starting a company, but I'm also an expert in content creation. So with a background in book and magazine publishing, and most recently, I was in charge of product development at a small software company where we developed a platform for visual marketing and storytelling for small brands. So I come at it from a slightly different background, but all things are valuable, right? Yep.
Absolutely. Okay, so let's find this out. How many of you are thinking about starting a company in the CBD space and doing some research?
Oh, interesting.
Okay. How many of you currently have a CBD company in the space? Okay. How many of you have had a CBD company and been in the space for over a year? Okay. Good to know, because that always is a differentiator in what we ask and how we answer. So it seems the majority of you guys are either thinking about it or just starting to do it. So that's what we've got. All right. So if I was to ask any of you, Christina, I'm going to need you right away. If I was to ask any of you in starting up your companies, what are some of the initial problems you're running into within the marketing scope, what would you say? Let's hear from you.
Channels, marketing channels.
Where are you from?
Phoenix.
Okay, Arizona marketing channels. When you say marketing channels, give me, Kristen, can you take it back? Give me a little bit more information. What do you mean by different ways to advertise?
Right, advertising channels. Yeah.
Do you have a store? Do you have a product?
No, I don't. I'm in the research phase.
In your research phase. Okay. So, do you have a name of your company? Kinda, maybe, sorta?
Preliminary. Yeah.
Okay. First thing I'm going to do is ask Neil about naming your company. So Neil, if we were to give the gentleman from Arizona some advice on naming his company and what he's able to trademark in this space and what he's not, and some do's and don'ts, what would you tell him?
I mean, the first step is you don't put a marijuana leaf on your logo.
Thank
I
you.
mean, it's not even because it's hard legally. It's just that it's on everything else. Try to be distinctive. You want a brand that people are going to remember if you're a good product or providing a good product or service. If you're providing a shitty one, then go with something generic so they don't remember you and accidentally buy you again. But obviously nobody's here to put out a bad product. And then you either we're going to work with a branding company, one of these guys, or come up with your own names, and you'll want to run a clearance search. Make sure nobody else is using it. They're not going to come out of the woodwork and send you a cease and desist letter. So you just need to handle your due diligence and make sure that you do have something distinctive and separate. Good marks are ones that don't describe a product. They're ones that suggest something about the product, or they're a made-up word that's not just a funny spelling, but a totally portmanteau.
Clorox.
Kodak.
Next.
Kleenex, although they're about to lose their mark because you don't ask for a facial tissue, you ask for a Kleenex. So it's just a generic, it'll become a generic term. So these are good things to look for. Get something distinctive. Apple. Well, you can't register a mark for Apple if you're selling fruit, but for computers, it's a completely arbitrary connection, and then you get to build the brand recognition around it.
Okay, we're still on the question of channels. So, Brandon, what would you suggest on channels of advertising?
Well, back to the name real quick.
Yes.
The URL is also a
That's a good
consideration that, and I've made the mistake before of being really excited about a name and then it not being available in a .com format.
Yeah.
And
Very true.
on the marketing channel front, that is something we deal with every day. We have a direct-to-consumer e-commerce solution where we need to drive traffic to that with restrictions on where we can advertise in that space, Instagram, Facebook, Google AdWords, etc. Kind of off the table right now. So we have to use some innovative online channels to drive traffic. Huh? Which are, for example, leveraging influencers. So if you were to look up a New York Times article on nano influencers, know that as a small brand, nanos and things outside of CBD, but nano influencers are folks maybe 3,000, 4,000, 8,000 followers that have niche audiences that you can send your first trial product to, and they can feel really good about having your brand, and because you're just starting out, they're trying to grow their brand. Nano influencers have been a success for us because that's one way we get our product from Oregon to Nashville to Asheville to Portland, Maine to Florida, and these localized nano influencers have done a great job of backlinking and sending folks to information on our blog channels. Blog channels, I'm sure we'll talk about that. Dedicate yourself to writing an article per week and start to stockpile your journey right now in a diary, because that content to be deployed later is going to be critical to, I think, and critical and differentiated to tell your authentic founder story. So start to tell that story now. My founder of Dan is in the audience, and I got to give him a lot of credit for 2014 starting a medical marijuana business. And not only was he working day and night cutting caramels and moving them into 85 dispensaries in Oregon in the nascent days of cannabis, but he was also documenting what he was doing. And we have all of that content to leverage and still deploy to this day.
Okay, and one thing I'm going to add real quick to that, hold on, Edwin, one sec. One thing I'm going to add real quick to that is we have found in, my previous life doing marketing for 60 cannabis companies in 6 different countries. Don't spend your time on Facebook, don't spend your time on Twitter, put your time and effort into Instagram and LinkedIn. That's where the cannabis community lives. That's where you're going to see a return on your time, and you're not going to get shut down. So those are your two safe avenues for that. And the content writing was a great point. 250-word minimum. That's all you need. Make sure you use your keywords in that article, and don't post it on more than one site at a time. So we're going to take another question.
Well, we got to give the plug to the trade show channel.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah. I just did 4 conferences in 3 weeks. We do a lot of conferences. They are absolutely worthwhile. And this is definitely the best CBD one I've been to.
Oh, thanks, Neil. I paid him.
Also the
Okay,
other one.
let's get the next question.
That's true.
I have a question for you, Celeste. Your company, it's clearly orange and green. I was wondering how you chose your color scheme.
I don't know if I'm the one that did. I think that, I'll tell you, I've had the same graphic designer. When I first started my company, it was only me, and obviously I was bootstrapping and doing what I could over 10 years ago. And I hired a freelancer from the Philippines to do my graphic design because obviously I had no money at the time. And she's still with me today. I refuse to hire a graphic designer in my company because I am loyal to her. Our days would be her nights, and she would stay up and do whatever I needed in the time frame I needed it. And today, 12 years, I've seen her grow up. She was in high school when she started working for me from over there. I've seen her grow up, and today she's built her entire family a home in the Philippines from working on for us. And so I have a ton of faith in her. She's amazing, and I believe she's actually the one that came up with this, to be honest with you. So she's my little genius. So
Also, orange and green are perfect because they're opposite on the color wheel, so they pop each other off. Purple and yellow. I'm sorry, orange and green, purple and yellow. So just hit the color wheel, and you want things that are kind of off of each other, that are as opposite as possible.
absolutely. Next question. What else we got? No hand yet. Okay. Got one? Yeah? No? Okay. So, Edwin, I'm going to go to you.
Cool. Can you remember your name one more time?
Brandon.
Excellent. I want to be consistent with it. That micro-influencer rollout is absolutely the bread and butter and key that a lot of you should be looking at in early stages. I have seen companies emerge with CBD brands, and I'm not going to name, but come out and go scale to multiple $1 million of revenue in the kind of time frames that we all want to see, based sincerely on that arbitrage. So the playbook is to identify where first of all, you need your great product, and you need the things that we're going to talk about today. Once you have it, to find who are the people that are matching over in your niche. So for this particular person, he found out that yoga and hula hoop dancers on Instagram, these small influencers, were a really great space to begin distributing product, and he sent out as much as he could possibly afford. I'm talking about thousands of units, straight up. Give them to them, and a referral code, but that affiliate stuff, the referral code for them to try to directly sell into their network is less important than just those impressions that come from somebody that's trusted on Instagram. And this is like the playbook. If you can put capital into distributing free product to the right micro-influencers at scale, you will get into the pockets of consumers. Absolutely. There's no question or choice. It is the way that brands are winning across the board. Another thing that I'm going to say, a channel that is a little bit murky is actually Google AdWords for some companies. If you're not just heavily marketed with, CBD and cannabis terminology, some companies can do Google AdWords. We're quite successful in Google AdWords, but we can get away with, not having tons and tons of super focused cannabis phraseology on our site because we're ultimately a manufacturing company, right? But if your website or if you have a separated blog or something that's not super keyword deep into the cannabis space, AdWords might be a place to play. I do recommend trying a couple ad buys on it with stuff that's not focused with the term CBD. Talk about health, talk about your ancillary focuses of the product. Try putting some money into it. If you start putting money and start getting returns and Google has accepted you, there's a chance that you'll be able to and kind of get green flag through. I've seen it happen in a couple scenarios.
Lisa, I'm going to go to you real quick. I have a question for you.
Okay.
So, if we're talking about advertising, and we're talking about print versus digital versus billboard versus, several visual medias, how do you think those all stand up against each other in the CBD space?
That's a very good question, and I'm not sure I can completely answer it, but it seems to me like we're so limited, like we've already learned with the major platforms. For me, my biggest avenue, and I did this before I ever launched. Before I was doing a lot of user research in a private Facebook group. This doesn't answer your question, but it speaks to community, and because my demographic is women and women of a certain age, and they spend a lot of time on Facebook. I actually do reach those women there, and I give a lot of free samples away. So my private Facebook group, where I'm doing a lot of education to overcome, misconceptions about CBD, and I take a lot of time to answer questions. That community building, for me, is what's helping my brand. I'm not doing any print advertising. I see a lot of it, but I see it mostly in, publications like your own. I feel like in a lot of cases, what we're doing in this industry is internal. Like, I see a lot of people following me on Instagram and they're other companies, right? So the community part for me gets me out of that. I mean, I love following other brands and I like to see them following me. But I also, the micro-influencers, super important. And that sense of community and education, for me, that's the most important thing.
Interesting. Okay, do we have any questions on anything so far? What do you want to know? What can we help you with? Where are your problems at? Yes, Christine.
Sorry.
No, that's great.
Just a quick follow-up. So that's all great, guys. I really like the ideas. Thank you. But just going back to the community building, I mean, how you monetize that base, right? I mean, one thing is education is great, but you got to make money.
Well, you hope that they, well, in the case of my Facebook group, before I ever had my website, I had this group, and I was saying, invite 10 of your friends, I'm going to send you a free sample. And then I'm trying to convert that to email
Into
addresses.
sales.
Got it. So you will send your community into that website where you have.
Well,
CBD product.
before I ever launched, I had a landing page, a reg page.
But what do you sell? What is your product?
Oh, I do curated gift boxes for women that are mood related.
Got it.
It's
Yep.
very, it's.
Do you have an
women
angry
right now
box?
are so concerned with toxic
Neil.
stress. What?
Do you have an angry box?
No, I have a mellow
can take
box,
Neil
which
off
I'm
the
going to
panel.
send you. Do you need it?
Clearly. Just wondering.
I want to follow up real quick. Another thing is that, like any community building, the way to monetize it is to do it at scale. Get the people in
Exactly
the
right.
room, get enough people in the room, and the monetization is going to come from your good sense and the people that you've surrounded yourself with, right?
Yeah,
And your
like-
funnels.
With Brandon's view of the blogging and the narratives, I'm a huge advocate of SEO because that's really where you hit it without even advertising. You're the top link. I want CBD that is mellow, and you get your hit. And I think the narrative and blog speaks very well to that to get your rankings up. But it's natural, it's organic, and you're not paying for it outside of time and investment into the narrative.
To add to that, one of the biggest challenges we're facing right now is Dan Hempworks. We have opportunities that come in the door that we have to say no to, and some that we get to say yes to. We have a branded ingredient that can go into a beverage. We have a on-premise consumable product that we sell through craft beer distributors, for example, those require specific marketing channel management plans, i.e. someone to drive along with 35 sales reps to educate the business. Then we sell at retail. That opens up a whole new opportunity for marketing channels that translate to revenue, i.e. we have a tactic in place called Double Down on Demo Days in July. And that means that we have demo tables at every retailer, this particular grocery chain, every week. So we want to hit every store every week in 20 stores. So that's a lot of demos and a significant investment, but you can sell product there. And the biggest challenge that we're facing that I've hired several consultants to get in a room with me on is clearly defining who our consumer is before we make major investments in marketing spend. I can't clearly define, even though we're only 8-9 months into revenue, but I can't sit here and, as an expert, clearly define who Dan O'Dan Hempworks' real core user can at the end of the day. And that's the challenge that is ongoing for us. And which of these lanes to pick and who to actually target. Because we do need to make money. We can't just nano-influence and send out samples and not see traffic coming from Instagram and conversions on the site. But you can see that, and we do see that. So
Does anyone out here have a store, a retail store?
All right.
Really? Interesting. Yeah. Next month. Okay. Christine, microphone. All right. So here's what I want to know. Now, when you open your store and you are filling your shelves, what are you going to look for with the products that you put on there?
Very specific, much like what you're doing. I've targeted a particular market, so my assortment is based off of appealing to that group.
Okay. All right. So for the people, how many people out here have products or are thinking about having products? Okay. So for those people that have products out here, what would each of you guys recommend to differentiate that product? Because I think last I heard there were 2,000 CBD companies. 5,000. Did you hear 5,000? Is that right? Wow. So with that said, there's a lot of competition. How do you get yours to stand out? That's probably the number one question I'm asked. Okay? So how do you do that? Now, there's only so much shelf space. We know that. So how do you convince these store owners, these buyers, to put your product on the shelf? So let's start with Neil. What would you suggest?
I mean, of course, a brand name is something, but we'd start with the product you're selling. If it's the same as everybody else's product, you have an uphill battle. You have to do it by branding. If you've got a product that differentiates itself by its very nature, then it's really just sharing that story. And then from the legal perspective, of course, any brand, packaging, what have you, you want to try to protect that and keep others from trading on your goodwill.
Brandon?
Well, instead of taking maybe an academic approach to that question, just answering it in the form of a story, and that is, Dan O'Dan Hempworks is first differentiated by the product itself, and it starts when it hits your lips. So sampling is very critical in the process that when I engage a retailer. Now you taste the difference. I can talk to you about whole plant, full spectrum, water soluble, sourced from this particular farm, but taste it and get the flavor. And then experience it being, moving as a honey into a dissolvable, water soluble format. That's differentiated as well. I mean, we have the benefit, again, to Daniel's credit, of doing something that's easily digestible is completely different from everyone else in the industry. We're not trying to isolate a single molecule. We're more akin to a winemaker. So we tell those stories and we go to natural food retailers and on-premise businesses that we feel that story is going to resonate with. we base it first on product. Then, of course, it's margins, and can we keystone this pricing, and can you scale up, you know? So then it's, yeah, well,
What's going to make me pick your product off the shelf against another one that's sitting by? I can't taste it. I'm looking at it as a consumer.
Well, personally, we've been told that we have elevated packaging, that we put a lot of time and thought into the design, and move a little bit away from CBD. We concentrate on the whole hemp flower infusion. We differentiate we tell the story around how it's a hemp flower infusion versus an extraction. You turn every panel on a beautiful box and you get something that's informative and differentiated. And then you have very clear and reputable supplement facts that are, before the FDA tells you what you have to do, go to the 1994 law on supplements and ensure that you have your supplement facts on the label, and ensure that, and that's what the natural products industry exposition, if you want to be next to Charlotte's Web, and you want to be next to Barlean's, and you want to be next to Papa and Barkley, and other great brands that are here, Vitaleaf, etc., you have to elevate to that standard and go beyond being a CBD brand that's unregulated.
Okay, Edwin, what can somebody who has a product do to get their product on the shelf of a retail store?
On the shelf and picked from the shelf. One of the things is that if your product has a feature that identifies it into something that is familiar, is that you could consider leaning into that. I was talking with someone the other day who had it day and night, this is 2 days ago, night and day success kind of flip, and the axiom was their thing is kind of modeled after a cigar, an old school cigar. Once they started moving towards more traditional cigar packaging that was kind of up-resed into this contemporary space, their sales went through the roof because people were like, oh, I know what that is. You know what I mean? I can grab onto that familiarity. A lot of CBD brands, kind of hard to tell what they are from the outside. Another brand, there's some very cigarette-looking hemp cigarette pouches. I think that's good. They're buyable. You know what a cigarette pack looks like. That's one thing. Another thing, and I think it's a big opportunity, is there's emerging certifications around sustainability and organic stuff. There's one called, gosh, I wish I could remember, the ROC, Regenerative Organic. I would check that out, absolutely. Look for emerging certifications that really, when people see that stamp, because we all know when we see a circle and it says a thing, we're like, what is that? Do I recognize that? Oh, organic, okay, but if there's something interesting on there, oh, well, this is, regenerative of the earth or something, it'll be engaging and create that space. And I'm going to take that one step further, which is that I think that a missed opportunity again and again in this space is social impact. So social impact companies, are huge right now, are companies that are doing things in social impact. It can be, and that's, helping people out or helping out the planet or something like that. It can be very fluffy, oh, we donate $1 to, this cancer fund or, or to plant a tree, when it's like, you're buying a shot at the bar. It doesn't really quite match up. But an integrated social impact system where maybe the people that are working on the farm where the biomass is sourced, that they have, living wage certified. There's a through chain of social impact, I think, can create really compelling narratives for people that if they're properly identified with a couple, strong statements aligned core with the brand or with the product, could really do a tremendous good to bring people out and to stand out from the crowd.
Okay, Lisa, how are you going to get your box? How are you going to convince a buyer to put your box on their shelf?
Well, I'm probably going to have an easier time convincing this lady right here because she looks kind of like me, right? So first of all, you identify who your audience is. And this is where, getting actual feedback from users is really important, just like it is in software development. Know who your user is. Because Celeste, she's probably, and I'm going to select brands that reflect what I want and that probably look a little bit more female-oriented than your brand, right? So that's super important to me. And in fact, when I curate these gift boxes, I'm the user. I am my audience. I try everything. And so the branding, the message they're sending, everything they do, what's in the product, the claims they're making, that all feeds into, what I feel like is going to be appealing to my demographic. I am my demographic.
So let's talk a little bit about claims. That seems to be a big thing. So we have a product, we're putting together packaging, as Brandon said, got to It's an issue. You want to be picked off the shelf. It is important what your packaging looks like. Claims. What exactly can I put on that box and what can I not? Neil.
Oh, man. Half of the stuff here is really in violation of FDA. The other half is
How do you
fine. There was a talk yesterday by Justin Walsh at my firm that did labeling specifically for CBD, but a quick answer is if it's a supplement, you need that on there. You can only do structure plus function claims. You can't say it cures cancer. The stuff matters, but the FDA hasn't done a ton of enforcement. The main enforcement they've been doing is, first off, we should probably start with CBD isolate's illegal. But nobody's enforcing it, and it's in Rite Aid, and it's in CVS. So we can talk about laws, or we can talk about enforcement. But if we put that aside, you really still want to comply as much as you can with FDA law, and most of their enforcement has been if you're mislabeling it, it's not the right amount of CBD in there, or if you're making medical claims on it, you really don't want to do that. So it's very strict rules, and you can follow along with the supplemental rules on structure plus function claims and what's permitted and what claims you can make. And if you put a website on there that's somebody's scientific study, you are liable for anything they say on their website if it's connected with your advertising. So you've got to be careful. A lot of it is implying CBD may be doing things as opposed to saying it. But if you email me, we can send you the slideshow. Or you said the slideshows are available to everybody who comes here, right, in like a month?
Correct.
Yeah, so that'd be a perfect way to go about it as well.
Interesting. So, questions? Do we have any? Yes.
Hi, I have a question around products, and it's more, I guess, ideating around how to position the product. So thinking about possibly doing a beverage brand, do you think that it's important that you go all in and say you're a CBD beverage brand, or I'm thinking, do I have some options that are non-CBD, and sort of mixing the two, saying here's the non-CBD, here's the CBD version, or do you think that it's more important to go all in and be like, if you're going to do CBD, has to be across the whole product line?
Are you co-manufacturing? Are you having that?
Like having a
Are you the manufacturer of the beverage, or will you have someone make the
Define
beverage?
manufacturer,
yeah.
Brandon.
Define manufacturer?
Yeah. Just for the audience.
I guess my question is, will you have a certified facility to produce beverages, or will you hire that out?
That would be the plan in the long run, but I think starting off, I'd be doing it myself, and then going to a brand to help scale.
Okay, so I guess this is kind of like the advice column, but not an anecdotal. Going out, and I think there's entrepreneurs in the audience that have brands that you could talk to. Going out with too many lines
Sure.
presents a challenge, and as you get more and more, you can get traction. You could have a chocolate and a gummy and a vape pen, etc. But they're kind of hard to move once you have this. You might have 25 SKUs, but you have 2 people to move it. You stress out. You work 7 days a week. So it's kind of like, I would advise onesie, twosie, but get traction with the flavor profile and broader benefits of the beverage,
Yep.
where CBD amplifies whatever that core is that differentiates your beverage in the first place.
Yeah. So do you think it's a disadvantage to have a CBD version and a non? I don't know if you have an opinion around that.
I don't, based on some personal experience with beverage distribution companies I've found that are willing to bring on both the non-CBD and the CBD version of, say, a lemon ginger soda from the same brand.
Yeah.
And they've picked it up and move it. I can't quantify which one's outperforming the other, but there's an appetite in beverage distribution for CBD beverages, and if just bringing that to market would probably be, you'd probably pick up an account or 2
Right.
and not have to have multiple SKUs.
Yeah. Yeah.
From a
I think
federal
that answered my
trademark
question.
perspective, it's better if you have a non-CBD one. It makes my job a whole lot easier. Yeah, but that's from the legal perspective for brand protection. It makes my job easier because unless you're FDA approved, you can't put a food item with CBD in it unless it's whole hemp oil as opposed to a CBD isolate. So it's complicated legal stuff, so it sometimes makes it easier for my job if you've got a fully legal product.
Interesting.
Right. You could go to Oregon, and I could point you to 3 beverage distribution companies that don't feel like there's a lot of risk to get you into 200 accounts in that state, but they're not going to ship your CBD product to Utah or Idaho. But if you had that second brand and your CBD version's taken off, you could use that other brand in Idaho and Utah to drive brand awareness around maybe the more whatever it is you're selling in that beverage.
So I think you have your answer.
You're saying if I'm driving brand awareness in a state that I can't ship the CBD version to, it'll at least drive the awareness for people when people go to my website or my Instagram and whatnot, and then learn about the CBD version.
Here's the other thing that it makes possible as well. Things like Google AdWords.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Things like that, because it gives you a much better chance of getting
You just
this.
have to define if you're a beverage company or a CBD company. If you just go out as a beverage company, then the consumer believes that you have this product with these ingredients and then this other special ingredient, you know?
I think, too, there's something that we're seeing here in this conversation, which is that we're in a phase right now where there's 5,000 new CBD companies heavily identifying with CBD. I think some of the things that we're hearing Brandon say and that is coming out of some of the more expert panels and conversations is that over-identifying with just CBD is probably a short-term game, right? You want a strong business. A lot of the conversations that are probably the most effective are not coming from a CBD or cannabis space. This is strong business and marketing sense mentality. So, yeah. I think that over-identifying with CBD is probably a problem at this point. If you are, I would recommend maybe moving more towards having a brand, maybe more like Brandon's, that has a broader story.
Okay, next question.
So regarding retailer education, what we're finding as a manufacturer, as a brand, is going to the retailers. A lot of the retailers are either misinformed from whoever the first company was, the CBD company that got to them first, and they ask almost the wrong questions of the manufacturer, or they're misinformed and told that hemp seed oil is bad, or this is bad, or I hear that I should get this from here and not from there, and I guess my question is, how do you connect with a retailer as a small brand? Because there are some big brands out there that are now getting called out for having their product grown overseas and such. How do you, as a small brand, make get to the retailer and communicate what makes your brand special against all of these bigger brands?
Lisa, start us out.
I'll have to learn with you on that one.
Yeah. Next. Who else has some?
This is what we're living, and many of the brands here living, eating, breathing every day. And so this double down on demo days in this particular grocery chain is all about getting to know every assistant wellness manager, and wellness staff member that sells our product very well, and then them to inform us who they're selling it to and why and what differentiates us. So I can tell you how we got into that one particular retailer, which may be more to your question. But we're getting that data, and you can do this on a smaller scale. We're getting that data, and then we'll take it into the trade show, and we'll show the hockey stick of sales and how we got sell-through, because we're going to learn from the staff, and we're going to improve how we merchandise and improve how we compete. And you can do that, let's say, at your local co-op. And you can go to a local co-op and you can get in with the buyer because it's your neighbor. And the neighbor buys the product and moves the product. You go in, you work with that neighbor to move the product from there to there, and get that data. And I would love to go after big box retail, but Dan and I can't make enough product to meet the demands of big box retail. So we are doubling down on making great case studies out of that one business. Our launch was the hemp flower happy hour, where we took one SKU to 4 different establishments on the same corner in Portland. There was a beer store, a cocktail bar, a coffee and tea house, and a juice bar. They all added the product to the beverage. They all have completely different consumer segments at that time of day, and we encouraged them to go from spot to spot. And then I wasn't sure if we were going to come up with 1 customer, 2 customers, 3 customers, 4 customers. But I had some people that I'd built relationships with who were willing to take a chance in a state that's favorable to taking chances. And that's how we got started. They saw sell-through, they saw sample. And it's in that instant when the bartender was like, I hate this effing dropper bottle to make drinks. Put it in a pump bottle. I need 2 hands. And so it was with that experience that we put the product in a pump bottle, and you can now make faster drinks, and that's how that worked.
Yeah, I think that's
Good user
great.
research.
Yeah, and I would say, unfortunately, education and re-education and re-education and educate again. And, you know, along with that, sampling.
You mean sample your own product?
No, to give,
I'm just kidding.
you know, and let them see. You know, maybe they had a bad experience with this one, or you know, maybe it didn't. They don't know what to do or what avenue to take. You're going to have to give up some money in samples, and you know, they're going to have to make it a consumer-driven decision. So.
But I think we have the same misunderstandings with the consumer as well. At least, you know, with my demographic. You know, there's a lot of hesitancy sometimes, and a lot of education, like you say, that has to happen. And I'm e-commerce. You know, I'm not in stores, but I am targeting like spas and places like that where women congregate, hairdressers, estheticians, people like that. So it's a lot of education.
And you guys don't forget your loyalty reward programs too.
Mm-hmm.
Those are super important when you either have a retail store or a product. You know, every one of us should have a tribe, and you have to give that tribe reasons to stick with you. So, any other questions? Okay, so if I had to ask one last question going down the row, and I want you guys to know I didn't prepare them at all, obviously, so I think they've done a really good job. If I said if you were just starting a CBD product today amongst the, let's say, 5,000, what would you do launching that product? If you were launching a product today, some of you are, what would you do? You've got a lot of competition. You've got lessening shelf space. What would you do? Neil.
I mean, from the legal perspective, I would get a distinctive brand, something that does pop on the shelf, something that once people try the product, if you can get that first sale, they're going to remember it and be able to tell their friends instead of saying, well, with CBD tincture X, I mean, look, we've looked at 50 tinctures here. I mean, what sticks out in your mind? What do you remember that isn't just descriptive of the product? And that's from the legal perspective. I mean, as far as the narrative and such and niching yourself down, I'm a supporter of that, but I think these guys can speak more to that.
Brandon, 1 minute.
I would look beyond CBD, and we call this the CBD Expo, but there's also a tagline around cannabinoid science. And if I put myself in Celeste's shoes, CBD's hot right now. We're going to call it the CBD conference because that's what's hot. But let's make sure we give a nod to the cannabinoids and the plant, and move beyond CBD and think about the story that you can tell beyond, you know, the isolated molecule or constituent in a plant. That's my take, because big vitamin manufacturing and big pharma, et cetera, has put brands like us in a position where it's going to be a real challenge to compete if you're competing just on that single molecule. It's not differentiated enough.
It's very true. Edwin?
In addition to a lot of the advice that kind of just went around and has been going around, I think that there's such an entry of people into these audiences that all of you are trying to target right now, and that in order to stand out, that you've got to look for what isn't being done. One thing that I see that isn't being done is true star power. There are a couple really notable like artists, various musicians, and entertainers that are super into our space and haven't been activated in a deep way. They probably don't want to hear it, but one way to do that would be to integrate a couple things, right? So you've got your great standout product, you find your star power, and then you have your great story, and then once again, I'm going to recommend having some sort of social impact component to your business for yourself, for your soul, first of all, for all of us. And I would integrate all those things, have that person tell the story, have it be something they're invested in too. Kind of this like vertical integration of meaning, an ontology to your business. Bring it to the table with, a big flash partnership, with that star power or something that really shoots for the skies and for the vision. That's what I would do, especially with a digital and online brand. Or I would just have a really cool product. Like, your product is so cool, I'm probably going to buy it for my girlfriend, straight up.
Good segue.
Yeah.
Okay, Lisa, finish us up.
Okay, so, for me, I think it's all about authenticity and it's all about connection on kind of a personal level, and finding out what's important, to your user. And for me, what I've found out through, really talking to them and communicating with them is that it's all about stress. Like, we have this level of toxic stress in our culture, and women experience stress at about 3 times the level of men. Because we basically do everything. Sorry, guys.
Still want an angry box.
I'm going to make one just for you.
Oh, perfect.